What's up, Fight fans? I'm Ben Bartels. Welcome to the 31st episode of Cage Talk, your one-stop shop to get all your UFC and fight news updates you're going to need weekly. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the not the most stacked fight night happening this weekend, name-wise at least. There's some good fights on it, but, it's not the most stacked fight night in the world. And then we're going to be talking about the fight night from last week because there were some pretty interesting fights on there. It didn't seem like the best card going in, but it's always those kind of fight cards that seem to perform very well. This one didn't perform the best, but it's getting talked about for kind of all the wrong reasons. So, let's get to it. Starting off with the UFC Fight Night for next week, making our predictions for that, we got Gabriel Bonfim versus Randy Brown headlining that fight. And honestly, I said it before, name-wise, it's not the best card in the world, but there are actually really lots of good fights on here scattered throughout, a lot of just low-key bangers that people might not know the names of the people immediately. But if you see these fights, they'll make a fan out of you. They're really good fights. So just skipping right to that main event, we got Bonfim versus Brown. Two prospects, which I say in air quotes because if you look at the ages of these guys, you got 27-year-old Gabriel Bonfim and then 35-year-old Randy Brown. And, prospects in the ages 30 to 35 are kind of hard to come by, but Randy Brown, he's always seemed like kind of a prospect, He's always coming off a win or two, and then he'll lose a fight, or coming off a win or two, and then he'll lose a fight. Right now he's coming off maybe the potentially knockout of the year against Nicholas Dalby. And Gabriel Bonfim, Gabriel Bonfim on the opposite side of the spectrum is coming off of that really close split decision, I would say robbery, to Stephen Thompson. So both these guys pretty similar in age, or not similar in age, pretty similar in height. They're both really big 170 pounders, both weighing it or both being highly over 6 feet tall. Randy Brown's got 5.5 inch reach advantage, which could play a factor because Randy Brown's a really good striker, and this is definitely a striker versus grappler matchup. Bonfim definitely going to try to get this fight to the ground. Utilize his choke. He has an amazing guillotine. Randy Brown, an incredible jab, very snappy right hand, and I think. My pick, it's really close, but I think I'm going to have to go with Randy Brown. And I know the age isn't really, on his side here, but I don't think he's old enough to where age is going to play a factor just yet. Maybe 1 or 2 years, and that could be the case. But Bonfim is really not coming off the best performance. The difference in momentum for these two fighters is really, really evident. And I think Randy Brown is really going to show his speed in this fight, and I don't think Bonfim's going to get close enough to grapple, and I think Randy Brown might just piece him up to a decision win or maybe a knockout at some point. And I think he could get a knockout at any point in this fight. I wouldn't be surprised with an early knockout or a decision win for Randy Brown, so I'm locking that in as my pick. Matt Schnell in the co-main event, that is laughable. I don't even want to talk about it. Matt Schnell retired 5 times now. He is incredibly washed. But I'll take him in the co-main event because he's fighting a can. So Matt Schnell in the co-main event, why not? Uros Medic versus Muslim Salikov is the featured fight, and actually a really, really good fight because it's one of those low-key banger fights. Uros Medic, he's never seen a scorecard in his UFC career. He's 10 fights deep into the UFC, I think. He's 7-3, but he is a very entertaining striker. Knockouts galore. I think all his wins in the UFC are by knockout. Muslim Salikov coming off a knockout over Carlos Leal, a first-round knockout, very quick. Carlos Leal, if you don't remember, was this surging welterweight contender. Everyone thought he was going to be the next big thing after he got robbed by Rinat Fakhretdinov, but Muslim Salikov knocked him out real quick. And now Uros Medic is fighting Muslim Salikov, and both these guys are incredibly powerful, technical, dynamic strikers, and I think because of that, I have to go with Uros Medic. Uros Medic is significantly younger than Muslim Salikov, and I think age will play a factor in this. Salikov has kind of always been the dark horse of the apex, you know what I mean? He's always this old fighter that can shock the world if, he feels like it one day. But I think Uros Medic is powerful, fast, and young enough to kind of negate the expertise that Muslim Salikov brings. Although I wouldn't be surprised with a Muslim Salikov knockout, so keep that in mind. Moving on to actually I think is the best fight on the card. And you don't usually get to say that about the fourth fight on the card being the best fight on the card. I think this is definitely better than the co-main event. Co-main event is one of the most boring fights of all time. Euros Medic versus Muslim Salikov is a great fight, but I don't have a opinion to both of these fighters. But in the fourth fight of the card, we got Ricky Simón versus Raoni Barcelos. I love both these guys. Right, Ricky Simón is that short, stocky pressure wrestler, kind of like a Merab, but like a diet Merab. And then Raoni Barcelos is kind of on like a run right now. He's kind of making a name for himself. He's pretty old. He's before that knockout loss to Umar Nurmagomedov, nobody really knew him, and then he got known for being the guy that Umar Nurmagomedov knocked out. But then he turned a corner. He beat Peyton Talbot, and then he beat Cody Garbrandt, and now he's kind of got this fan following, this cult following. And now people know him for just being that guy that upsets hype trains. And Ricky Simón is kind of on that hype train right now. I mean, he's coming off maybe the knockout of the year over Farid Basharat. And Barcelos, I mean, he's quietly been getting wins. He doesn't talk trash or anything like that. He doesn't try to attract anyone, but I mean, he just is. I think this fight is just incredibly close. Barcelos is incredibly well-rounded. His stand-up's pretty good. He's quick for his age. He's not too powerful, but, he can strike with anyone. His grappling is elite. He's got, honestly, some of the best BJJ in the entire division for being unranked. Simón is kind of the opposite. He's an incredibly heavy pressure wrestler. He's got great power. Not the most technical in the world. He kind of sometimes struggle to get in on the distance, sometimes struggle to cut off the cage. But I think this is a very close fight. And, man, I've gone back and forth 80 different times. And I think I just have to go with Barcelos, just kind of for the storyline. But I really wouldn't be surprised with a Ricky Simón finish here. But I'm going Raoni Barcelos by decision. Moving on to opening the main card, we got Marco Tulio versus Christian Leroy Duncan. And this is what I mean by this fight. Not having the biggest names, but really good fights. I mean, the past three have been really good with not the biggest names, and this continues that. Marco Tulio versus Christian Leroy Duncan. Man, I love CLD, right? He's very fun, athletic for being that huge at 205, and he could easily make heavyweight. But Tulio, he's on a 4-fight knockout streak right now, and his momentum is just like sky high compared to Christian Leroy Duncan, right? I'm going Marco Tulio by knockout. I think he's just this prospect, and I think these prospects have a way of just winning and winning and winning until they come up with a challenge that, might seem fit to them, but I just don't see CLD doing that to them. So Marco Tulio by knockout, but Christian Leroy Duncan, I'm going to love him either way. Incredibly amazing fighter, so I'm excited for that fight. Moving on to the last fight I want to talk about for this card, and it's opening or headlining the prelims, is Haider Emil versus Jamal Emmers. And this one's kind of like another low-key banger. These are both very tiny dudes that come to scrap every time. Haider Emil, you might know him best. He got knocked out in his last fight in a minute against Jose Delgado, which isn't the best performance in the world. Honestly, as bad as it gets. But he also, before that, was an incredibly great fighter coming off a win over William Gomis. William Gomis is another one of those featherweight prospects that'll just always be outside the top 15 until, he breaks through at some point in his career, which I believe he will. But Haider Emil is an incredible fighter, very active, known for just being a pressure fighter, heavy hands, a striker, and he will just push, and push until his opponent breaks. And he's fighting Jamal Emmers, who is kind of similar. Jamal Emmers is more of a counter striker, but he's got a really, really sharp left hand. And I think he could, more than anyone, clip Haider Emil coming in and I think put him away. But I just don't see that happening. I think Haider Emil is just going to be able to break Jamal Emmers at some point. I'm thinking round 2 knockout. And words cannot put to justice how great this fight is going to be. This is going to be the meme of 2 unranked bantamweights going to war while the main event just pitter-patters. This is going to be that because Haider Emil versus Jamal Emmers is going to be 2 just crazy individuals just going back and forth until someone breaks. So I'm excited for that fight. Moving on to the fight night happening last weekend, I want to talk about some important fights on there. Not the best card of the year. I didn't even give my predictions for it because who cares. But it was a very good there were some interesting fights on there. Most importantly, main event, Steve Garcia steamrolled David Onama. David Onama didn't do anything in this fight, so, I mean, Steve Garcia just first-round knockout, and there was really nothing to say about it. David Onama didn't put up any resistance, it seemed like, so Steve Garcia definitely going to be a contender. A lot of fun fights for him going forward. He called out Josh Emmett. He called out Max Holloway for BMF, which is pretty unrealistic, but a man can dream. Moving on to the co-main event, this was the most interesting part of the card because Waldo Cortez Acosta and Ante Delija. Ante Delija seemingly finished Waldo Cortez Acosta in the first round with a barrage of punches, but when it was looked at in the replay, Delija eye-poked him, which is an illegal move, and you can't do that. And to be fair, the ref did not officially call off the fight. Delija thought that he called off the fight and started celebrating, gets this big adrenaline dump, and then the fight gets continued after 5 minutes of judges and officials talking about it. So the fight rightfully continues, but then Waldo Cortez Acosta, 20 seconds later, knocks out Ante Delija in one of the craziest twisting turn of events I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, it looked like Ante Delija finished him, fight's over, Waldo Cortez Acosta knocks him out 20 seconds later. I mean, the fight gets waved off, and I don't even know. But, yeah, I mean, an incredible performance from Waldo Cortez Acosta. He definitely deserved the win. I mean, whether it was a disqualification or a knockout, Waldo Cortez Acosta deserved the win. So, with all respects to him, I think he is honestly 1 or 2 wins away from a heavyweight title. I mean, he just lost to Sergey Pavlovich, but before that, he was on a pretty good run. So, I'm excited to see what happens next in his career. And finally, the last fight I want to talk about on this card is a fight that really went under the radar for everyone. But Isaac Dulgarian, known as one of the most promising prospects of the UFC at the moment, gets submitted, air quotes, in the first round. And this isn't just he got submitted, but he didn't really tap No, it's this fight might have been fixed, which is kind of crazy that we're still talking about in the Big 2-5 because. For those that don't know the story, Isaac Dulgarian was a huge, minus 700 favorite, and then an hour before the fight started, he shrunk to a minus 200 favorite, which is really suspicious betting behavior. But then the fight happens, and Isaac Dulgarian gets taken down and shows awful technique to finish the rear naked choke, which he has not shown in the past before, that he knows how to defend, submissions, and he just kind of ended up rolling to his back and getting submitted and tapping out, which is very not Isaac Dulgarian-esque. And Isaac Dulgarian has been removed from the UFC. His purse has been withheld. There's a current investigation going on, which I'll be sure to talk about when more information comes out. But, apparently Isaac Dulgarian has maybe through the fight to get, a good bag from someone, which I mean, it's kind of crazy that we're still talking about in the Big 2-5. I mean, this is early 80s behavior, not 2025 behavior, but, it's just kind of crazy that Isaac Dulgarian, one of the biggest prospects of the UFC, would throw away a UFC contract to, maybe fix a fight. So I guess we'll see what happens with that. Overall, a pretty crazy UFC fight night last week. Not really the most interesting. Hopefully, the one this week should be more interesting, even though name-wise it's not the best. Main event of Gabriel Bonfim versus Randy Brown is kind of crazy, but it should be a pretty good fight. So I'm pretty excited for it. I hope you guys are too. And that's all we have. So be sure to check out other episodes on FHNtoday.com and FHNtoday on Spotify. Drop a comment below on if you're actually excited for this upcoming fight card this week, because honestly, I kind of am with the amount of good fights on there. Once again, this is Ben Bartels. Signing off.